Hi, just a short video. I want to show this off. This is a NuTone model 2051 AM Intercom master station. I have other videos about this model and other similar models, but this one is a standout. And if you look carefully as I wave my hand, you can see the reflection of my hand in the shiny part of the faceplate. Why is that? Because this is actually a new old stock, never has been installed original 2051. And I acquired this recently. When I acquired it, I did not know that it was going to be an actual new old stock unit. I decided to acquire it because I'm partial to the copper tone finish on master stations. In the pictures, it looked pretty clean and complete and not damaged or bent. I figured it would be a good unit to have, either for a restoration and then to move it along to a new home somewhere, or even if it was in worse shape than I imagined. They're always useful for their parts and things. There's parts of it that are hard to get nowadays. And, you know, as much as I don't like to scavenger things down for their boards and parts and things, sometimes that's what you got to do. When it showed up and I opened the box, I was amazed. I have never ever seen a new old stock one of these. If we look here, you've got the copper tone finish, and this panel around the radio dial and this panel around the room control switches is polished aluminum, so it's shiny. This panel down here is satin copper finish and sort of a brushed copper around the outside edge with this medium matte gray perforated metal grill in the center. The knobs are like brand new, and when you turn them, it's just as smooth and even as you would expect it to be. The on-off switch clicks nicely and rotates freely, doesn't hang up, and the switches move just like brand new switches that have never really been operated before. If we flip it around, you can see here on the end right here, it has a date code. It's E65, which means this was manufactured in May of 1965. Good year for intercoms. If we turn it around on the back, you can see the back of the faceplate is the polished copper. It is an aluminum faceplate with a copper anodized finish on it. And then you have the chassis down here. It is totally and pristinely, perfectly clean. It could not be any better than it actually is. And this is what it would look like if you had bought it in 1965 and took it home to unbox it to install it in your home. It has the standard, and this is an AM only model, it's not AM FM unfortunately. It has the standard AM antenna connection right here, the blue wire, and you can tell if you look at the end of the wire, nothing's ever been attached to it. It's just like the day someone at the factory in Ohio when they stripped the insulation off of it. It has all of the original NuTone labeled tubes, and we'll just take this one out here. This is the 50C5, it's the rectifier tube, and they have the NuTone logo printed onto the glass. NuTone didn't make the tubes. They would have bought them from someone or some other company. Normally they are either Mullard or Sylvania or something like that. No real fancy high-end tubes in something like this, just your most standard basic radio tubes. Now some of you might be thinking, well, let's hook it up and see if it works. Let's hear what it sounds like. No, we're not going to do that, because even though this is new and it has never been used as far as I can tell, and I do really believe that, there are components in it that need to be replaced because they were put in and manufactured in 1965 and they're well past their expected shelf life. The main filter capacitor needs to be replaced. There are a couple of small paper and oil caps, one here, one down here, one right here. They need to be replaced. I think there's one other small electrolytic. There's one down in here. That needs to be replaced because, as I said, it's well beyond their expected shelf life, and you don't really want to turn them on at this point In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is when you send me a set like this for it to be rebuilt, and maybe it's been in your house since 1965, we don't turn them on before we start, because you run the risk of causing damage to a set, especially if it hasn't been used in a long time, and it's just not the right thing to do. If you work on these all the time, you know what needs to be done, and you do the rebuild and the repair first, and then the big payoff is at the end when you turn it on for the very first time and it simply plays. I was speaking with someone a couple weeks ago about a similar model that they're going to send in to be rebuilt, and one of the things that came up in the conversation, which I found interesting, and it's one of those kinds of things that I assume everyone knows because I know, but a lot of people don't know. Tube sets like this, any tube set, when it's in working condition, when you go and turn it on, when you click it on, like this, it's not instant on. It's not a solid state radio like the ones they made later. It's not a solid state radio like what they make today. It's a vacuum tube based radio, and there is a warm-up time to it. A system that's in good condition and everything is working well, the normal warm-up time would be somewhere usually between maybe 5 and 10 seconds as the tubes warm up and begin to work. On sets that are very old and tired, I've seen them where the warm-up time can easily be a couple of minutes. Also, after the initial warm-up, which is when you begin to get sound out of the speaker, there's a longer period of warm-up time that goes on, since these are encased in a wall housing in the wall of your home, and the only ventilation that they have are from the slots in the bottom and the slots in the top. They rely on what would be considered convection cooling, which means that since the enclosed part of the master station in the wall warms the air up inside the wall housing and inside the wall cavity, that warm air rises, because warm air rises, and it comes out through the vents in the top, and by that airflow rising up, the theory is it pulls cool air in from the bottom to help maintain a certain even temperature inside the wall. This was always a consideration on designs, and the very earliest sets NuTone made, the 2011 and 2012s, and then 2015s, 2016s, which sat flat against the wall and had no ventilation. Heat buildup in the wall was an issue. In fact, it was enough of an issue that there are service bulletins that address problems with the magnets on the speaker cones when they become too hot inside the wall opening and then they don't perform correctly. After the initial warm-up of maybe 5 or 10 seconds when you begin to get sound out of the speaker, there's also this waiting time as you play the set and everything equalizes temperature-wise inside the wall housing for it to come up to its original specifications and work as well as NuTone intended. Another thing that comes up in conversations sometimes are, if your set still has an original label on it, like this one does right here, it's a little hard to see, has the model number and some of the power specifications. It says 120 volts, 50 to 60 cycle, that's hertz in today's language, at 35 watts at 0.28 amps, one little more than 1/4 of 1 amp. And also, if you look on the front, it says here 120 volts, 60 cycle, 30 watts, or 33 watts in this case. The 33 watt figure is not the number of watts that the amplifier in the 2051 produces. It's the amount of watts that the unit uses while it's turned on, playing at normal volume. A 2051, the amplifier output on it, it's probably somewhere between maybe 5 and 6 watts, or maybe more like 4 to 5 watts. It's a little hard to know because it doesn't really state anywhere how much the output is actually on a unit like this. That's it. It's just a little gem of NuTone history. Not something that I've ever seen. I've never seen one so pristinely perfect before. Now the question is, what am I going to do with it? Because while it would be a wonderful thing to sit on the shelf in my office and see every day, I try not to be a collector. So probably what I will do with it is, when I have more time, I will go through and carefully replace the components in it that need to be replaced. I'll test the tubes to make sure they're all good, make sure it's in good working order, and then at some point, somewhere along the line, I'll find a home for it. I hope you found this interesting, and maybe for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time I post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.